The TechCrunch fire hose, I've never truly understood that. Like people approaching them to then just basically say the exact same thing that was going to come out in a press release elsewhere.
Well, it's, there's different reasons to talk to press. I think one thing that I tell founders all the time is that, the best stories are often not about the best companies. And just because you have a really good company doesn't mean you yet have a good story from a reporting standpoint.
So true.
And if you're successful enough, the coverage, the attention will come over time, right? We've seen this time and again where some of the buzziest names now to get an interview with were pretty hard to see coverage of earlier in their career. Like Vlad Tenev now from Robinhood is like the guy. But, for the first couple of years of Robinhood, it was just another fintech. We hadn't had the whole GameStopification where they became a meme. And so I think, why are people going to TechCrunch or other places? I hope that they're working backwards if you're a founder and thinking, this is what the article will get me. This is the outcome we want, whether it's hiring people, finding new investors, finding new customers. And then they're talking to the publication or the creator or influencer who helps fit that need. So if you're like, honestly, there's no good reason to talk to Upstarts. We wanted to talk to Bloomberg, but they said no. And you're like the next best thing. That's not going to be exciting for me, right? But if you're like, we love Upstarts' brand focused on startups, you're a challenger, we're a challenger, we want to bet on you as well. Like that'll be much more exciting for me. And then if you want to talk to Bloomberg, God bless. I think having the right sort of platform market fit or publication market fit is really important. Yeah.
Well, to piggyback on that, when I started writing, it took me 2 years to get this off the ground. Where nobody listened to me because I think I was trying to write from the lens of this fictional smart person that I thought was out there. And then I found audience market fit once I started writing about what was just interesting to me and in the way that was natural for me to talk and write. And I think what I'm hearing from you to play it back is you look at it through your own lens of would Alex find this interesting? Because if not, you probably shouldn't do it.
If Alex doesn't find it interesting, his readers won't. And there's a good chance that I'll still get it wrong and I'll think something is interesting, but not all my readers will like it. The reality is I can't write something for everyone at once. I recently just published a story, a deep dive into PetTech, because I felt like I was doing a lot about AI companies. And while a lot of my readers care about AI, they probably don't want all AI all the time, or at least not everybody does. And so moving around in the startup ecosystem is important for me. And I just have to remember that, different flavors for different folks.
Outside of funding rounds, though, what's the best way for companies and operators to capitalize on a media opportunity? Because these funding events, it's you brought a bunch of cash, but that shouldn't be the only compelling event where we get to talk about you.
100%. The reason funding, I think, became such a proxy is because companies can't always give their revenue. They can't always give their biggest contracts. I would love for the execs, who are listening in or watching, I would love them to share all their numbers, but that's just not the reality usually. And so funding rounds became a proxy where, hey, if I have a high valuation or I raised a lot of money from an investor who's known, this is a sign that we are growing healthily, that we are maybe bigger than you think, right? And so it kind of just became the badge of honor there. But I don't think for reporters, it's the most exciting thing necessarily either. As you said, it's a moment in time. It's fun, it's funding to actually go do something. The funding itself is not the end goal, or at least it shouldn't be. And so I think, what I've tried to do is look at things like revenue milestones, new product launches, or even just kind of zeitgeist moments where it feels like people are talking about or debating something and this company is well equipped to address it. And that's how I kind of have approached my coverage. So I definitely think that it's easy as a founder to feel frustrated, unless I have a huge funding round, nobody's going to pay attention. But I think you just have to be more creative.
I also find it way more fascinating to talk about a company that went through something or is evolving. To me, I don't want to see just the highlight reels. I know that it's hard work to build something enduring. I want to learn about. It makes you more humanizing too. If you talk about your failures.
100%. I think that no one wants to hear someone brag endlessly. If you meet up with some friends you haven't seen for a while and one just talks relentlessly about how great their life is, everyone else gets turned off, right? They want to hear the challenges. They want the real talk. And I think the challenge is just we are in a world where folks want to brag on social media. They're fighting for the perceived attention of success, and they're scared to show weakness or talk about challenges because maybe that just becomes a soundbite or the focus in a way that makes them look weak or something. And I think that's unfortunate. I agree with you that often the stories that have gotten the most feedback in my career were ones where someone went through a pivot or a turnaround, or their company went through a near-death experience, because that was so much more relatable and tactically helpful. When I talk to founders at events now, I'm always trying to get really specific advice or war stories that other founders would find valuable. Someone just being like, hang in there and follow your passion is really not gonna help someone in their day-to-day.
Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.